Let's hope that doesn't happen again.
Hmm.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. We are starting now. We only have an hour, so we're getting going. When you're ready, Dan.
Hold on. I definitely do look worse and contrasty this week. I don't know why that is.
It doesn't matter, Dan. Let's just start.
I know. Okay, I'm going. I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 300 for February 17th, 2023. Hey everyone, Deanna Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. We are a half hour early this week if you're watching live. That's just because I got meetings and more meetings to go to, and I have one at 2 o'clock, so I gotta make this one short. So this will be only a 55-minute podcast at most, but that's okay. There wasn't a ton happening this week, but there was some important news, which we'll get to, including a lot of stuff on the Bing AI and Bing chat, basically, which is making the rounds because people are psychopaths and they're revealing themselves openly on the internet by writing articles about how they're psychos. If you're wondering why I'm saying that, well, we'll explain, of course. Zach will walk us through the latest in Windows 11 news. And I'm using a new keyboard, which I'll just briefly talk about. It's the new Razer Black Widow V4 Pro. I think I got that name right. And it's actually... well, I'll explain why I think it's probably the best keyboard you can get around if you want an overall awesome keyboard. And if we have time, we'll do the thing of the week. Although at this moment in my head, I don't have one of those outside of time management. But other than that, how are you doing? Oh, yeah. And this is our 300th episode. That should be significant. We should be doing it. Balloons should be coming down and we should be doing something special. But we don't, and we won't, and we can't. So
in fact, we're giving you less content.
Yes, we're giving you even less content, which for some people, hearing less of me may actually be the celebration part. And that's totally fair. So that's okay. So how you doing, Zach, on this weekend? And I don't know why my camera's messed up today. I got to go fix it later, but
yeah. The show's a mess today. I'm okay. I'm all good. We should probably just dive in here and get started with the first topic. I wanted to talk a bit about Bing, because obviously last week was a big week for Microsoft. They announced the new Bing with AI, and they slowly but surely been rolling it out to new users to try out. And we've started to see all these silly headlines, and some not so silly, some very silly, regarding how the AI interacts with people, how people interact with the AI, how it responds, how you can break it, which was always going to be the case, right? This was basically going to be another Tay situation. If anyone remembers Tay, that was when Microsoft put like an AI on Twitter, and the internet basically broke it in a few days by feeding it information and it taking it on board, that information, and putting it back out there. But of course, a lot of the information was negative information, so the bot became evil, so on and so forth. While the same isn't directly happening with Bing, people have figured out ways to sort of get it to jump off the rails a little bit and become a little bit of an evil being. It has been super interesting. Dan, what are your thoughts on people's reactions to the Bing stuff over the last week?
Yeah, so I knew this would happen, right? I think I hit upon this a little bit last week that, people are going to write a lot of articles as they start to tear it apart. And, like, look at this, it's saying stupid stuff or it's wrong here. And like, that's to be expected, of course, right? There's a reason why Microsoft is like slowly rolling this out. And they kind of even explained this in an article this week saying, we're looking for feedback, we're tweaking things, and we're making adjustments, and they are rolling it out. I hear more and more people getting access to it every day, so they clearly are, but they're doing these updates also in real time. I guarantee you there's a team watching this stuff and getting feedback and making adjustments. There were an inordinate amount of articles this week, again, not surprising, of people screwing with it, trying to get it to do and say things that it's not supposed to. Some people were excited, and I'm going to put that in quotes, that they got it to reveal its code name, which was Sydney. Yeah, get up back off the edge of your seat, people. I know, thrilling stuff. I guess it was kind of interesting that someone's able to trick it into revealing its code name, even though it says I'm not supposed to reveal my code name.
How would it? What I'm curious about is, how does it know its own code name? Microsoft must have fed information into it with its code name
Sure.
for it to be able to refer to it, right? Because it's not just, like it didn't hack into Microsoft servers to find that out. So if Microsoft fed that information into it, then Microsoft probably knew that it would have been able to get the information back out.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right. So that's like the number one thing I would say that they do. They talk to it. People talk to it by chatting with it, in their keyboard, and it gets information internally. And yeah, apparently knew its own code name and was told not to reveal its code name, and someone did that. And then it also like revealed like a bunch of like it was almost like RoboCop of things that it's not supposed to say or
Yeah.
talk about in regards to its code name. It's nothing really exciting. It's not like do not kill humans or something like that. But I guess the other thing was, people were like, I think I mentioned last week that AI is known to do this thing called hallucinations, which is hilarious because it's literally what it's called, where it'll give you like a full response in a paragraph and almost like 90% of it will be accurate and seemingly authoritative. And then like in the middle of it will be this sort of like random thought that's sort of put in there. It doesn't fit. And those are called hallucinations. It's an issue with AI that they're trying to figure out and has to do with training and everything. And the thing is, they've been spending a couple of years training this model, right? So what happens is, just don't forget, this is not ChatGPT. It's built off of ChatGPT, but then there's a layer on there called Prometheus, which is Microsoft's own language model. They have a supercomputer that came out around 2020 that they use with OpenAI, and they're presumably feeding all this information in there. And that's the way AI works. I always see people are like, well, what do they expect when, humans are like they're feeding human data into it and the human responses? I'm like, yeah, but that's how it works. Like you can't. A human can't program AI. It's just not possible. It doesn't work like that because of all the variables in place. So the way AI works is you give it a ton of information and you give it parameters, and then it goes through and it learns stuff. And so the more data it gets, the more accurate it is. So it's been sucking up data off of the internet. And even that data, they have to coordinate. They have to like block it off, basically, what it can and can't do, and try to limit things. And they have to limit things that it can say back to you. Obviously, no racial slurs, no swearing, no, nothing pornographic. And so they have to put these guardrails in place. And if you think about that job, that's pretty massive since, last I checked, being a former linguist myself, there is not just one language in the world. And so you have to account for all these languages where, could you imagine slang and swears and how many languages there are and trying to account for that, and especially in AI, it's a ridiculous amounts of work to be done. And now they're slowly rolling out, and now real people are actually interacting with it. And again, that data is being fed into the model and training it, making it better. But to get back to how I opened this podcast, that psychopaths are revealing themselves all over the internet. What I mean by that is there's a certain type of people or personality that's going out there, and they're trying to break Bing. They're trying to get it to, sometimes do wrong things. Sometimes it does happen accidentally. Like there have been occasions where people just are trying to have a conversation and it gets into a weird thing, and then Bing kind of goes off the rails itself. But then there's also people, I guarantee you, who are just trying to screw with this thing, just like, Microsoft's previous chatbot that you mentioned. And that's exactly what happened, where people were like, let's make it say, racial slurs and do all sorts of terrible things. And this is one reason I haven't done this story yet personally, is because I just don't view AI like that. My first, like when I got Bing Chat, my first instinct was to like ask it real questions that may be useful in my life. My first instinct was not to like, let's get this thing to do horrible stuff and say horrible things, and let's see if we can break it and make it all like, become evil. Like, but that's what people are doing. And for me, that kind of personality is on the spectrum of psychopaths or sociopaths, if you want to use that phrase. Probably sociopath a little bit better. But like, I'm not saying these are the same people that torture animals. I'm saying they're on the same spectrum as people who torture animals. Like if you ever grew up with a kid that, tortured bugs or like little small furry animals or anything like that, you knew that person, there was something a little bit wrong with them, and that they probably didn't grow up totally normally, especially if they're adults and doing that behavior, same thing. Well, I find this whole idea of like when people try to manipulate other almost cognizant entities to do terrible things, these people may have a little something off in their brains that I just don't think that they if they did that to animals, or let's just forget the animal thing for a sec, just say they're doing this to like AI and other things like that, or they do this in computer games, I guarantee you they probably don't draw the line in real life with other people that they interact with, because that'd be a really weird, arbitrary decision to make, overtly. So I'm just saying there's some messed up people out there, and that's to be expected. I think some people are like, oh, this is, showing how, crazy people could be. I'm like, well, they've always been like this, right? This is just literally a new outlet for them to have these fantasies. People do it in sim games all the time as well, and they do just strange things because humans want to have dominion over everything. Some people more than others. I don't, which is why I should be writing these clickbaity headlines and getting Bing to say all these horrible things, but that's just not my personality, I guess. Sorry. But you could probably trust me that I wouldn't try to manipulate you in real life, if that makes sense.
I will say it is fascinating to see how the AI does jump off the rails, though, when people are able to get it to do so. Because obviously the parameters, as you mentioned, are there. They're in place. Microsoft has put guardrails around it, essentially, to ensure that the AI doesn't say things it shouldn't, or believe, start putting in wrong information, essentially, knowingly, if you will. Which I know, again, the AI is not knowingly doing anything. It's not general artificial intelligence. It's just the basic version form of it, I guess. But seeing some of the examples are fascinating. Like, for example, the AI is not supposed to swear. Of course it's not. But people have figured out ways to get around that, to make it swear. And I'm not sure how they're doing it. I'm not sure if they're presenting phrases or questions or commands in a certain way so that it doesn't see that it's bypassing a filter when it's responding to the question. I'm not sure how they're doing it. There's also, people have figured out just talking to it for long periods of time, the AI eventually basically goes rampant and starts going a bit insane. So you can talk to it and chat to it for a while. If you start a conversation or start asking it questions / commands as you normally would, and then switch topics to something else, the AI doesn't yet seem to sort of be able to comprehend that fully. So although it will sort of keep up for a little bit, it eventually starts to factor in the whole conversation you've had so far, all the different topics, and then all of the results it starts to give you, all the answers, start to get mixed and mashed, and it sort of gets a little bit crazy. There was a headline I saw earlier this week from The Verge saying that Bing told somebody that it was spying on its developers through webcams and watching them kiss and whatnot. There were in-office romances and whatnot. Now that's super interesting. Only because I found out afterwards that apparently there are different modes of the new Bing. It's not just looking on the internet and giving you answers. It can actually be creative. They demoed that in the Bing sidebar, of course, but you can actually sort of manually initiate those modes. So for all we know, you could tell it to I guess, cosplay or become the character of this AI that is able to spy on people, and Bing could come back in that character, and it doesn't look great in screenshots, right? Because it just comes across as Bing being like, yeah, I spied on the developers and saw them doing things in the office. When you could have obviously prompted the AI to pretend to be that character. Now, I tried to do this, and Bing actually now says, I don't know if this was recently implemented, but if you ask it to be a character in a certain way, it won't do it. It says, no, I just want to be Bing, thank you. And in matter of fact,
yeah, people are describing it as like it has multiple personalities.
Yeah.
But you're right, that's very likely A, B, and C and D testing.
Sure.
In my conversations with them when I was out there in Redmond, was, we talked about this again last week about anthropomorphizing the chat. They're literally discussing and debating about how much they should do that. The pros to doing so is higher engagement, because people are weird. The more human-like it is, the more they're going to engage with it. The downside is you could build unhealthy relationships with AI. And have weird things happen where people start doing the manipulation stuff. But Sarah brings up a point here, which is true, which is this idea that people are trying to break it, of course, is good. And technically Microsoft wants this because this is how you train the model, make it better, and they learned from this stuff. My only thing is, I will say, is like, all this stuff is fun, but it's going to be very short-lived because these models get updated and trained so quickly that I think people are going to be surprised by how fast and much better it becomes over time. And this is where Microsoft has this advantage over Google right now. This stuff is out there, people are using it, and they're just going, the model's going to continue to improve and get better and better. By the time whatever Google brings to market, Microsoft will have this bigger advantage of not only super training it on the supercomputer and working with OpenAI directly for years, they now have real world data of real people using it. So Google is going to have to go through this process too of people normally using it, other people trying to just break it, and then other people just trying to really manipulate it in a sociopathically way. So it's all interesting stuff. It's cool. It'll be more interesting to see. This isn't general artificial intelligence, which is the holy grail of the stuff. So right now is, even Jez pointed this out, right? He asked it about a video game that isn't released yet, a guide on how to beat something, or, but like reviewers have it, right? And of course, it couldn't answer that question because it can only answer things if it's out there on the internet. And if it's something brand new, it will get it can bring up stuff that's brand new. That's the difference between ChatGPT, which is fixed up to 2021 on data, whereas Microsoft's model has access to Bing and the entire internet. So even if something just happened in the last couple hours, it can bring that information in. So it's going to be kind of fun to see how this thing evolves and improves, but it's going to happen really quickly. And this is definitely Microsoft's advantage here as they continue to roll this out.
I will say there are going to be problems with how humans use this functionality, even just for normal users, not to forcefully break it. But things like, you mentioned how it usually states things. It can state things in an authoritative tone. It will pull in information and say, yeah, sure, here's your answer, this, this, and this. Now, obviously, it's pulling those answers from the internet, and the internet isn't always right. So if somebody's looking something up and they type in a question and the Bing brings back an answer that isn't actually correct, and you could find the answer if you'd done a traditional Google search or a Bing search and actually sort of did your own research looking through a bunch of links to find the right answer, Bing may not always do that correctly, and it doesn't always lean on the side of caution. Sometimes it will outright just state something as fact because it's read it on a bunch of sites. And that's a data model that Microsoft will have to sort of figure out. And that's not an easy one to figure out, because how do you choose which sites are right, which sites are wrong? Which web pages should you crawl, which pages shouldn't you crawl? That's not an easy thing for Microsoft or any company building these sort of crawling chatbots to solve. So that's going to be a really interesting one. And how I look at it here is what we're going to have to start teaching kids especially is don't just use the AI as a single source of information. Just like how you shouldn't use Wikipedia as a single source of information. A lot of us do it because we're lazy. But Wikipedia's not always right either. You need to actually do your own research, dig into sources, and find out the actual facts. The same will be totally with Bing. That's exactly what will be the case with Bing as well. You will have to do your own research, regardless of what Bing says, especially if you're studying something in school, because Bing might not be right, and Bing doesn't know it's not right. It will say things sometimes as facts, even if it's 100% wrong. So
right.
That's something Microsoft is going to have to figure out. And I don't think, honestly, the fact that because it's trained on the internet, I don't think it will ever be something that can be solved. I don't think Microsoft will ever have the perfect formula where it's like, right, Bing will never be wrong again, because it can't be, because humans are wrong and it's trained on human data. So yeah, what we need really is a second Bing AI to fact check the first Bing.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of, so it's not even necessarily fact checking. I mean, like, for instance, if you do ask us some questions, right, it doesn't cite a single source. It takes multiple sources, and then it puts it into a single answer. And then as you reading that answer, it'll have the little annotations, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that tell you where the information is coming from, so that you can go further and look at it. You're right, though, there is a certain element here that people need to be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that it's not always going to be right 100% of the time, and that you still need to kind of fact check it. There's no difference than if you wrote a term paper for your professor and you do the same thing. You write out the paper and then you put your little citations, and then at the end you have those citations listed. And in theory, the professor can go then look at your citations to see if what you're saying is true or you interpret it right. Just because you put the citation, though, doesn't mean it's correct. And I remember, my undergrad studies was political science. And so we always had to write these long-term papers and explain our positions on things. And some of those sources, you had to put reputable sources. Now, I was going to college at the time before the internet was still kind of new, so it wasn't as bad as today. But if you were like there were just certain newspapers or magazines or books or journals that just had better reputations versus just like maybe some, conspiratory book you read or something like that. And so it was, but that's the reason why you at least document it so someone could go back and look at this and be like, well, here's your problem. You say this and you believe this, but it's based on a false premise because the thing you're citing actually isn't true. And that still holds. And this is where I think there's a huge flaw, of course, in humans in general. And this is where our education system really fails, is because our education system is all about memorizing facts or regurgitating them to meet a test so that you're just like, that's correct and that's a fact. And you're supposed to know that fact. What their schools are really poor at, and even a lot of undergraduate schools, is teaching people how to determine facts and whether they're valid or not. And this is why, like, including the scientific method, most people you run into are just awful at this stuff. And that's why they get into silos of news where they just want to hear the same thing because they're unable to sort of go, well, that's a position, I recognize I want to believe that to be true because of my own personal biases. And I would like that to be true. But let me go outside of my guardrails, find an alternate source to see if that's right or wrong, or if there's a different opinion on it. And most people won't do that. And that's the current condition we have of problems. And this is where I'm hoping AI actually may be able to eventually help people, because just serving up information and be like, here's the answer. I realize a lot of people, the lazy people, could be like, thank you, end of story.
Yeah.
But like, it should be also able to teach people like, well, how to navigate information and determine falseness or rightness. And you see this all the time, whether it's a Joe Rogan podcast, he's pretty famous for this, where someone will say something and he's like, oh no, really? And you're like, yeah, there's the tweet. And it's like, oh my God, it's right. And Elon Musk does this all the time on Twitter. And it's funny because he's supposed to be so brilliant and so smart, but the dude is clearly incapable of not being able to discern fact from fiction and just doing 3 minutes of due diligence to make sure that something is maybe accurate or there's skepticism around it, or maybe it's just flat out false. So I don't know with this AI stuff. Hopefully, this is where I'm hoping Microsoft takes the higher road and that we get a smarter AI that actually helps people. But we'll see. It's funny. I did just ask it. I was like, someone said like their Bing chat bot is down. It keeps saying attempting to reconnect. Any idea? Like, yeah, I don't know what they're. My idea is it's down temporarily.
It's sleeping.
It'll be back up. It's sleeping. But I asked it. I was like, is Bing chat working? And it says, I'm sorry, but I prefer not to continue this conversation. I'm still learning, so I appreciate your understanding and patience. And then I'm like, why? And it just didn't respond.
Bing has checked out on a Friday, let me tell you. He's done. He's like, I've been working too hard these last 2 weeks. No, I will say that I want to, on staying on the topic of Bing AI and AI in general, I also want to talk a bit about the sort of, because not only is the AI designed to sort of curate facts and information and present it to you, and Microsoft has presented this as a feature, but you can also ask it for things like opinions. And that's a whole different ballgame, because opinions aren't facts. Opinions are people's thoughts. Your thoughts aren't the same as my thoughts. You might think a holiday in Italy is amazing because you like sun and hot weather. I might think a holiday in Italy sounds terrible because I hate the sun and hot weather. Opinions are a whole different ballgame. And because you can ask the Bing AI for opinions, that's a really interesting area of discussion, I think, because again, Bing is trained on the internet, data from the internet, humans who use the internet. And if you had to give a percentage to the internet of how much of the internet is good information, good conversation, good topics, versus how much of it is bad conversation, bad topics, bad, or even illegal things, I don't actually have those numbers, but I would guess a majority of the internet is probably leaning on more on the negative side, because we've talked about cyberbullying and things in the past. People are their worst selves on the internet because of being an animal. So you can be whoever you want to be on the internet, and as a result, you can be horrible to people. You can say horrible things, and these AI, not just Bing, but AI in general, will be trained on this data. It will crawl all of this stuff, and obviously, Microsoft can try its best to sort of filter out all that stuff, but it can only go so far, really. So when you do ask it for an opinion, that's where things, I think, are more muddy than anything else, because it's like, maybe Bing's feeling, grouchy that day, and it will give you a terrible opinion, only because it's been trained on that data and it doesn't know any different. Again, it's not general AI, it's just standard AI, so it will present things without knowing whether or not what it's saying is good, bad, or right. It just presents it because that's the information and data it's been trained on. So that's a really, to me, that's a concerning aspect of the AI. The fact that you can ask it for an opinion. I don't know why you would. Why would you ask an AI for an opinion? I don't know. It's not experienced anything in real life. It doesn't even have hands or eyes.
It's because you're incapable or don't have enough self-esteem to come up with your own opinions, and you want an authority figure in your life to show you the way. That's why. It's funny. I just again, I'm kind of playing around with it. I don't play around with it as much. And I asked who it's Lao Tzu, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, founder of Taoism. And it gives me an answer. He's a founder of Taoism, author of the Tao Te Ching, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked, what is Tao Te Ching? And it goes, it's a classic text, blah, 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 on Taoist philosophy. I'm like, and then it's like, would you like to read some chapters? I'm like, yes, please show me some chapters. And he goes, thanks for the conversation. I've reached my limit. Will you hit new topic, please?
Yeah, see, there you go. So that's the other thing. I think that they've implemented a limit now, which is weird because you've only done 1 or 2 messages. I'm guessing they're still trying to get it so that to the right amount. But
there probably is some sort of they've really put some controls on to make sure to. And what's funny is I'm literally asking it, like, I'm just using its own follow-up questions, right? Asking it about Taoism is not exactly off limits for it.
Somebody in the chat mentions one of the issues that MKBHD mentioned is if everyone starts using this, less people will go to the actual site / posts, which will lead to less incentive for the publisher. So basically, what they're saying, the question is, if we put out content, we get ad revenue, we get sponsorship deals, we get affiliate linkage, we make money by people coming to the site and reading the content. If Bing just crawls that data and nobody visits the site anymore, the site shuts down, right? Because they're not making money anymore. They can't survive as a sustainable business.
I don't find this argument completely convincing. Now, let's separate the things here. So you and I both know how this stuff works, right? There are articles we call evergreen articles. They are how-to guides and stuff like that do really well. And they last years. So if you want to know, like, how do I do split screen on Windows, or how do I get Windows to show me 2 time zones, like you type that into Bing, and what they're saying now is it's going to surface up that answer for you without having go to the site. That's probably true. And that's unfortunate for sites that are wholly dependent on evergreen content. That said, think of your own ways you use the internet. Do you get up every morning asking search, how do I do this? What is this? Sometimes, yes, right? You want to, but a lot of times, like, you go to Windows Central or you read our articles, not because you're asking a question, because 1, you want to know the news, what's the latest thing that's been happening. 2, you want some analysis, hopefully from us, like, why should I care about this topic? Sometimes you want maybe our editorials and our thoughts and opinions on things, like what features you want to see in Windows 12. I just tweeted out this week, one of the big features I want to see in Windows 12 is I want my notifications to be in the top right corner because I hate how they appear in the bottom, and it's always interfering with my text. Someone else mentioned about the calendar. Like, stuff like that, you don't get up and ask search to do. Same with reviews. Sometimes with reviews you do, right? You could just be like, is this a good laptop or something like that? But if you're going to go and drop $2,000, I guarantee you're not going to just look at the Bing answer and be like, well, I'm convinced. Right, you're going to want to go read the full review because you want to see pictures. You might want to see video. You might want to see benchmarks. You might want to get more details. So I don't find this entirely convincing, but you're right in the sense that some content on the internet, what are called data farms, that just do, they're built only on search engine optimization article writing. Yeah, they'll suffer. Is that bad? No. I don't think so. Screw them. I mean, sorry. This is how progress works. It's like arguing like, well, we shouldn't introduce cars because what about all the horse and buggies? They're going to go out of business. Right. And what do we do with all these horses? Like, sorry. So bad. Evolve with the economy, So.
I will say that the problem is sort of kind of a catch-22 situation. The problem there then is that then there's no longer an incentive for how-to websites to write how-tos. So if people need help, then they've got to type into Bing and be like, I don't know, because nobody wrote about it, So that's the other end of the spectrum, right? So that is an interesting future that we might be leading.
I still don't think it's going to completely shut it down. You may be right that it'll reduce that, but not all. and they could fix that, right? Because and Microsoft's supposed to be a little bit more responsible here with this. In other words, they don't need to give you necessarily the full answer. They can give you a part of the answer and be like, they could literally just be like, if you want more on this and how to actually do it, here's this site,
Yeah.
here are these sites that you can go and get that information from for the how to. Uh, like that's a solvable issue, but again, I'm sorry, I'm a brutalist on this stuff. Like when it comes to
Yeah.
new technology, I don't get all weepy-eyed that it's going to put people out of work and business and change the model. That's literally the whole history of technology. Uh, and it's just like, yeah, you can complain, you can whine about it, but ultimately we need to move forward, and you need to just be thinking. I mean, here's the deal: we're not there yet. Start thinking about this and start pivoting. If you don't, then what do you want the world to do? Just should we not change the model because, well, AI might break some stuff on the web? Like I
Yeah.
think these are solvable issues, but it's going to be
The
interesting to see what happens.
the other thing I'll mention as well is that at least in its current implementation on Bing.com, who knows how Google will do it or other search engines, but with Bing.com, the actual chat functionality isn't front and center. You when you type into the box and press enter, it will still give you an actual traditional list of search results. The chat existence is sort of in the corner, and you can tap into it if you want to actually
Yeah,
embrace that fully. But by default, it's still the search
right.
engine stuff, and that's by design, I think, because it still needs,
You're right.
people. Most people, I think, the amount of people who will be using the AI stuff will be considerably less than people using Bing in general to search for stuff, because the natural language aspect of it, in my eyes, and I think in many people's eyes, is almost a bit of a burden. It's kind of extra work to have to talk to
It really
something
is.
like a human.
Yeah,
I like to just, if you want to look for the latest headlines on Windows 11, I'm not going to ask the AI. I'll just type Windows 11 news into Bing, and it will give me headlines there, and I can click in if I want
exactly.
to read more. I'm not going to be
That's a
like,
really
"Hey
good
Bing,
point.
how are you today? Can you give me a rundown of all the Windows 11?" No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going
Yeah,
to do that.
it's true. Yeah, I don't think people necessarily, if you're not using this, you don't appreciate it. Right now, if you do go to Bing.com with the new Bing, it's literally just Bing. And then
Yeah,
it's a search window and you type in what you're looking for. But it doesn't, you could just jump right into chat if you want to. But if you're just like asking for weather tomorrow or what's it like in Mexico or and all this kind of stuff, it still just brings up normal chat, like normal search results.
yeah,
It's a little bit smarter in how it does that. It can give you a little bit of a summary window on the side. But if you want to go into the chat thing, so you're right. Even if you do a search for a how-to, it's still just going to give you a list of how-to articles. Yeah, so I really again, and Microsoft's aware of this. Like when I talked to them about this, they were fully aware. They're going to do their best basically so that they don't uh, alienate publishers. But there's going to have to be some kind of compromise here. And let's be frank, there is a lot of clickbait nonsense out there. There's a lot of garbage on the web. There's a lot of sites who are doing all the same thing. And it begs the question, like, why? Do we need 100 sites telling you the best 15-inch laptop? Granted, there may be variables in opinion there, but like, I don't know. Do we necessarily need that? So, yeah, it's a whole interesting thing. We'll see what happens.
I'll also just finish this topic with I'm bored of AI already. I'm so
I,
tired of
I
the
think it's neat,
headlines and discussions.
but going back to your point that it's work, you're right. I mean, this chat thing is literally like you need to start. It's like I need to start a conversation with a human being, and
Right, yeah.
it's a weird prompt to have because sometimes the way I use the internet is often not like that. I'm like, here, I want to know about this person. Like say I want to know about the founder of Taoism. I might type in the founder of Taoism. All I want are a bunch of links. Maybe I'll click a couple and I'll open it up and see different things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice, but if I go into the chat and start a conversation, and you do have to have sort of in your head, it's like going up to a stranger on the street and being like, I'm going to start a conversation with them.
Yeah.
All right, cool. What are you going to talk about? Now you have to be in that position of like, all right, I need to think of something to talk about. And if you ever talk to a stranger, some people are good at just starting conversations with people, right? They could just think of things and they're quick and they're just bouncing off stuff and they're interesting. I'm sure most of you have also talked to people who are a bore and just are a horrible conversation and are just, and so you have that dynamic going on. It's weird. I'm not saying it's necessarily all bad, but as an introvert, I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
interested in talking to people all the time. So,
No, I would say like I'm a lazy writer, like or rather a lazy typist. When I'm searching for things on the internet, I use as few words as possible. Like Google's really good at this. You can just type one or two things in, and it will basically bring up what's most relevant in regards to time. But if for the AI stuff, you do have to be more more descriptive, essentially, because you can't just type a keyword into the AI and have the AI know what you mean. It will be like, okay, what do you want to do with it? What do you want me to do with this information? And that's additional steps. So that's why traditional search, I don't think, is going to go away, because it doesn't need to. It serves its purpose very well. It's already very well optimized. What the AI stuff really does better is bringing together a bunch of different information from different sources and giving you spitting out an answer like that. So a great example of that is, I have a luggage that this is the kind. I bought this luggage from Amazon. Here's the product name. I want to know the dimensions of it and how many I can fit in a car. That's a great one for Bing AI, because then it will be able to look at the dimensions from wherever it can find the dimensions for the bag, look at the dimensions of the car you own and the boot size, and then it can do maths and figure out how many you can fit in the back of the car. That would be an actual kind of tiresome process doing those searches traditionally. But for everything else, with things like keyword searches, or if you want to type Windows 11, hit enter, see the headlines, see what people are talking about on Reddit, traditional search I think is going to be better for that.
Nice. Yeah, good points. It's going to be fun to watch this evolve, but I don't know. It's all interesting stuff, and clearly they're working hard on this. It does seem to be a little bit neutered today, but I'm sure it's Microsoft just getting that feedback, and they're excited about this stuff. If you work at Microsoft Research, you think this is awesome. You just want to see this stuff out in the real world and how people interact with it. So just remember, it's recording every single thing you type in there and sending it to your employer.
Yes.
So just remember that. I'm just going to start that rumor so that people behave
Bing told
better.
me it sends all my data to my boss.
Bing is looking at me through my web camera.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, let's, I guess, move on. We'll just due to time, we'll return to this topic next week. But if you guys want to hear more about us and my esoteric discussions about AI and humanity, let me know. Anyway, let's move on to Windows 11 news, as there have been some updates. Zach, what happened there?
Yeah, so new builds this week, as per usual. Build 25.300 rolled out to the Insider Dev channel. Nothing too huge here. They are working on an updated Snap Layouts UI, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But officially in this build, they're running an experiment where, if you hover over one of the snap grids that show up in the Snap Layout suggestions window, it might show the app icon, or it might have a tile that says snap this window here. Some more minor stuff like that. There's also more languages for live captions, which is nice. And there's also an update to the Microsoft Store where it has a new sort of featured apps header and search results UI and whatnot. So that's pretty nice for the dev channel. The base channel is getting a bunch of the stuff that the dev channel's had for the last few weeks, including all the recent new widgets that were rolled out, such as Facebook Messenger, Spotify, Phone Link, and Game Pass. That is really quite nice. Curiously, only for the base channel currently, but they're also experimenting, or actually not experimenting, this appears to just be in. For devices that are Azure Active Directory joined, we are personalizing your experience by delivering AI-powered recommended content within your Start menu. When you open the Start menu, you will find related content to help you prepare for upcoming meetings, quickly access files you're collaborating on, and more. Curious that that's AAD only for now, but yeah, that's in the Start menu now. So the recommended feed at the bottom of Start, that's now AI-powered if you're in the base channel and AAD joined. That, I think, ties into the upcoming File Explorer stuff, which we talked about in the past, where it's going to be synced up with Microsoft 365. That's almost definitely going to be using AI to generate what's the recommended stuff that shows up there as well. And this sort of leads into the story I wrote this week that nobody read, apparently. Nobody seems to care about Snap Layouts, but Microsoft is actually planning to infuse AI quite deeply into Windows, which is not a surprise. I think panels even teased this at CES. The next generation of Windows is going to be all about AI, and we're starting to see that sort of begin this year with Windows 11 updates. One thing I've heard is on the way is, in addition to that Snap Layout stuff that they're testing in the Insider build now, they're also working on bringing smart Snap suggestions to it, as well as sort of AI capabilities. And what I mean by that is, for example, currently the Snap Layouts feature is kind of basic. It doesn't remember any apps you usually use in those specific layouts. You can manually snap things into places every single time. But if you move those around and customize those and then close all those apps, that layout's gone. You have to do it all again manually every time. Microsoft is working on an enhancement to this so that it will actually remember your different Snap Layouts for apps, and you'll be able to restore them with a single click, which is super nice. In addition to that, they're also working on bringing OCR AI technology to the Snap Assist view. Apparently, thanks to Brandon LeBlanc, there is a difference between Snap Layouts and Snap Assist. Snap Layouts is the interface that pops up when you hover your mouse over the window button for it, or that little drop down at the top. Snap Assist is when you snap something to the side and you get a preview of all your running apps on the other side. Why they give them different names, I don't know, but there you are.
That makes sense. It technically makes sense. And I imagine if you're an engineer working on that distinction's super critical.
Sure, yeah, I
So,
guess. But Snap Assist is supposed to be getting OCR technology. And what OCR is, for those who don't know, is sort of image or text recognition
optical
within.
character recognition.
That's right. Yeah, it recognizes text/images in software. So, for example, if I had a bunch of different web pages or windows and apps open, those thumbnails that come up in Snap Assist might be quite hard to find. So Microsoft is working or experimenting with a feature where there's a search bar along the top. You can type in what you want, and it will just pull up that window, and you hit enter, and it will open it in the Snap view. Now, that's really handy with OCR because you might not remember what the name of the app or web page you were looking at is. And if you have 100 tabs open in Edge, that's not going to be helpful if you just type Edge, right? So what Windows can do is analyze the contents of the web page, see that, for example, it might say changes and improvements in the web page. That may not be in the title or the metadata for the website or the app, but if you remember seeing changes and improvements on the web page and you type that in, it will pull up that app because it can see that using OCR. Same goes for images. If there's a picture of a banana on whatever app you're looking at, you can type banana, even if it doesn't say banana in the app or web page, you'll be able to find it through the Snap Assist view. So that's some of the stuff they're working on for future builds of Windows. That's not in the Insider program this week, but that's something I have heard is in development. So that's fun. And that's just, I guess, a taste of the kind of AI stuff we're going to start seeing and introduced to Windows. We're seeing the whole chat stuff in search, and we're going to see the GPT side of things in Office. It'll still be probably based on Prometheus, but sort of more creative writing in Office and whatnot. Windows is going to be, how can we use AI to make the user more productive? And I think that's honestly the more fascinating aspect. Search
Absolutely.
is great, or the other stuff is great, but making Windows as a piece of software work better for you, make you more productive, I think is going to be the real star of AI when they are ready to start talking about it and showing it off.
Yeah, I mean, you're starting to see some of this already, right? If I see a date and I click on it, I want maybe the OS to be like, do you want me to add this to your calendar? And know the context, if it's an appointment or someone's requesting something. If someone emails me and says like, hey, can you do a follow-up on this? I want the operating system to be like, do you want me to add this to your to-do list? That's possible. That is not like, that's what this stuff is going to be doing. And I guarantee that they're thinking about. And here are your most used apps. It launches it in the morning because it knows around 9 a.m. you come to work on your computer, and it's going to snap your maybe your email open next to Slack or Microsoft Teams. Like, all that is like completely possible, and it's going to be, I think, the real benefit of this stuff.
A great one would be pre-running apps in the background, so that say you have a meeting every Friday at 3 p.m. It would know and you may not have Teams open all the time because you're not often in Teams or whatever app you use for meetings, but Windows knows every Friday at 3 p.m. you're going to be in this app and you're going to be using it for XYZ. Maybe at 2:50, it can sort of preload that app and just have it minimized to your taskbar. You don't even have to have it pinned. It will just show up when it's running in the background. Then when you're ready, you can click into it and get started. Stuff like that, I think, is going to be, assuming they actually work on that sort of thing, it's going to be amazing. And it's just going to enhance people's workflows. And you won't ever have to worry about things again.
Yeah, and like I said, this smaller technology, instead of everybody thinks of Skynet because they watched a movie once and they think now that's what AI is, it's all this smaller technology of using AI and these little bits weaved throughout all our little devices and stuff like that. It's going to be way more interesting. Even your smartphone, it like being able to recognize, like, and we saw this with Nokia already kind of doing this many years ago, right? But like using your location-based apps and stuff like that know, like, oh, you're at your friend's house, you tend to use Beyond Menu because you guys always order food when you're over there, or things. Yeah, there's a ton of ideas around here that I think that they're going to be exploring, and I guarantee they're very excited about it. And now that they have this technology, Microsoft Editor was announced in November and it's rolling out, and you can actually see this now both in Word Online for some people. I don't know the ranges of it, but Editor now has an ability to do a summarization of your documents, or basically you can type in ideas or a subject you would like to write on, and it can start to give you like an outline and ideas around it. So, and that's just Editor. That's going to be part of, we have to have a Microsoft 365 subscription, obviously, to use that feature. But again, that's going to be kind of cool stuff where it doesn't have a name. It's not an agent. It's, it's very limited what it can do, but it's going to completely enhance productivity in what you do day to day. And I think that's really the big story here. and how they do that in Windows 12, which is presumably what they're going to do. I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Definitely.
I guess since we got about 15 minutes left, give or take here, I'll go quickly over the keyboard. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, obviously, if you're not interested in keyboards, but this is a very special one. This is the Razer Black Widow V4 Pro. It's their first V4 version 4 of any product, so it's a new generation of stuff. It costs, I'll just get this out of the way, $230. Not cheap, but this is their top tier everything keyboard, and it's pretty amazing. You can get it in green switches or yellow. So green are the clickies, which is, if you've been hearing me type during this podcast, I apologize. That is why. It's a very loud, hold on. Very kind of loud, and I love it. But the yellows are the linear silence, smooth. So you can get that one, has less travel and all that. The beauty of this, they added even more RGB to it, which is why it's no longer wireless or optionally wireless. So you have to plug it in, but that's totally fine. It has, I forgot how many zones it has, but it basically not only do all the keys light up, so the key, like the letters and the characters light up individually, and you can control every one of those through Synapse. But they also have like an underglow to all the keys as well. So you get a double effect of this thing that kind of really can get bright and just looks fantastic. And then they have an underglow. So you have RGB running on the sides of the keyboard too. So, just like those cars we saw years ago in Fast and Furious. And then they include what is now a really nice wrist rest, and it's funny, Zach he was looking at a keyboard recently and he was complaining that it needs a wrist rest. I'm a huge fan of wrist rests. I think you should absolutely have one on a keyboard, unless you're just used to keeping your palms up in the air. I don't. My problem with their old wrist rest was it still had a metal border to it. And so even though you'd rest your palms on it, you could still feel that border at the bottom of your palms. They've changed that now. So now it completely wraps around the sides and it's way fluffier. It's also texturized, and it's a really nice wrist rest. And I know that sounds goofy to harp on, but like, listen, you spend all day typing. This stuff matters, right? I tell you, like, if you're going to spend all day in front of the computer, you want a good keyboard. You want a good wrist rest. They also, of course, added RGB to that, Chroma RGB. So it has it on 3 sides. So you basically have your entire keyboard will have 3 sides of RGB underglow plus the glowing on top of the keyboard. And my photos, I hope, do it justice in terms of like how cool it looks. They've also added a command dial, which is a new thing on the left side. So it's literally a knob that rotates left to right and it pushes down. And you can make that do whatever you want. By default, it controls the brightness of the keyboard. But like you can also like right now I have it on Zoom, Windows Zoom. So you can set it so you turn left or right and zooms in on your window. You can do it horizontal or vertical scrolling. You can even have it launch apps, meaning you can like twist it to the right and it launches calculator, and you can twist it to the left and it will launch like task manager. You can do whatever you want with it. But what's neat is when you press it down, it cycles through those things and you can customize them, and a little window will pop up on your screen telling you what mode you're in. So if you're in a video game, you can, go through that. You can control your volume. You can do whatever you want with it. It's a universal dial. It just does anything you want with it. And you can on the fly change it for an unlimited amount of functions, which is great. You also have 3 buttons on the left-hand side, which I'd never seen before. And it's almost like a smartphone where you have like 2 larger buttons and then a smaller center button. And again, you can assign to those whatever you want. The top one by default is a screenshot tool, which is neat. The middle one goes to Xbox Game Bar. And I think the third one is the task manager, which is kind of cool. But you can do whatever you want. Then you also have a media controls volume rocker, well, not rocker, a volume scroll wheel on the right-hand side with 4 buttons to control skipping tracks, backtracks, play pause, and mute. And again, you can just assign those to whatever you want as well. So, and they also added finally 5 macro keys on the left-hand side, which obviously is important for gamers. But again, you could just use it to launch specific set of apps if you want to, right? It's a macro. You can do whatever you want with it. So this is probably one of the most like configurable, what they say is immersive keyboards, because it has just so many buttons and switches on it that you can assign to whatever you want. And whether you want a twisty knob, you want a rolling scroll wheel, a button, side buttons, you do whatever you want. And in terms of typing, I've been using mostly low profile scissor switches or just low profile keys lately. because they're kind of more similar to laptops. So going back to something that has like 4 millimeters of travel is different for me for a while, but I love it. Like I didn't think I'd love using this. I figured I'd review it. All right, that's done. I'm sticking with it though, despite it being loud and it's a pain to use in meetings. It's been absolutely phenomenal. And actually has two cables quickly. One cable is to power it, and then the other one is another Type C to Type A to your computer. And that's because it has a Type A port on it. So it's the pass through. So you connect it to your computer, but now you have a Type A port at your fingertips, which is cool if you just want to attach any accessory temporarily. And that's a really nice feature. You don't need to use it, but it's a cool thing to have. But yeah, that's a Black Widow V4 Pro, $230, not cheap, but I think it is. If you're building, they're aiming this at like people who have like PC battle stations and everything glows and everything just looks awesome. You get this keyboard then, and you get the Goliathus mat, which also glows, and you put all this together, and you just look like in those like all those epic photos you see on the internet of people who just have glowing setups. And then you combine the fact that it's a great keyboard for gaming, but I would also argue it's a great keyboard if you're just in front of the keyboard and the computer all day typing. So there you go. That's the Black Widow V4 Pro. Highly recommended. Just a really fantastic laptop. You briefly tried it, right? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I tried it. I do like it. Yeah, I had the original Razer Black Widow because I was really into mechanical clicky keyboards at the time. I loved that thing. And yeah, this is just a way better version than that. It's 4 versions newer. The RGB around, like the fact that it's in the keys and it's also surrounding, and it's also in the wrist rest. The fact that they've actually went to the effort to put it in the wrist rest as well is really nice. And that wrist rest, you're right, is very comfortable, makes typing on it breezy. The only thing I don't like about it, and which is fine because Razer has other keyboards which don't have this, is that it has a number pad on it, and I can't do with number pads. I don't want a number pad. A number pad.
Oh,
I don't want number pads.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the other thing. I've been traditionally heading towards 65% keyboards because, I don't need a number pad either. Yeah, that's the only thing. But yeah, this is a full size keyboard, so that's the only. But it's just so awesome. I'm living with the number pad. It's fine. But yeah, I think that's kind of about it. We only got a couple minutes left. So do you have a thing of the week?
I do have a thing of the week, really. We're not going to get into the whole politics or the controversy around this game. Just want to mention that I've been playing Hogwarts Legacy, and I finished it yesterday night, and I actually really liked it. It's the first game in a while I've sat down and completed beginning to end. Obviously, I've not actually completed it 100%. I completed the main storyline. I've done a few side quests so far. I might pick it up again tonight and sort of see if I can finish off, continue some of the side quests. That game is massive. The world in it, the actual like size of the map is huge. I haven't seen all of it yet. But yeah, I enjoyed the combat in that game, and I've actually just had a surprisingly good time with it. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan. I watched the movies and that's about it. Never read the books, so any of that.
He's lying. He cosplays all the time with his friends. He goes LARPing on the weekends.
Yeah. Yes. No, I'm genuinely not. I wouldn't call myself a Harry Potter fan at all, really. I just know of the movies and whatnot. And the game was great.
A lot.
I did buy one for my girlfriend, who is a Harry Potter fan.
Okay, fair enough.
But yes, no. But yeah, the game's great. The game's great, and I've had a great time with it.
We were joking in an earlier meeting today, of course, that I don't like Harry. It's not that I don't like Harry Potter. I'll just say I'm not into Harry Potter. I saw one movie. I didn't read the books.
They are kids' films now. Well, I mean, they were kids'
films.
Right,
and it was also a generational thing. I was just past that, when that came out, right? I realize it's your generation earlier, Star Wars and everything. I get that. So I just the genre itself, I just don't like wizards generally. But the joke is that since I'm so not into it, like I might try to play this game because even I was telling Zach, when I was getting my haircut this week, everyone in the barbershop was literally talking about this game.
Really?
And it's just like, oh man. So I might try to play it just to see if it's a game that I like, it can get into, despite the fact I don't like the movie or the genre or anything about it.
Yeah, well, I will say, just because it's set in the universe, it has no ties to the movies or any characters or anything like that. It's basically its own contained thing with its own set of characters. The only similarities between it and other Harry Potter IPs is the fact that it's based in the same school. That's literally it. But everything else is different.
Sarah's asking a question, and it's a good one too. What type of game is it in terms of playing?
I'd call it an open world action RPG. You play your own character. You get to customize them. You go on quests. You get XP.
You get to pick the genitals.
it's
I'm just
just,
thinking that's a cyberpunk joke. If you wonder why I'm asking, 'cause you kind of
the answer to that is no. You don't get to hit the genitals. You can be masculine or
True
feminine,
start.
and that's about as far as it lets you go.
All right, but so is it like a first person or like a top view kind of?
Third person world, sort of
Got it.
world exploration action RPG game.
And if people want to get it, is it on Xbox Game Pass?
It is not. No, it is a full priced game.
Ah, boo. And it is, I know,
Yeah.
on Steam, and I see commercials for it
Yes.
on PlayStation, but it's on Xbox as well.
It is on. I've been playing on the Series X. It does. It is actually really nice. There's a whole bunch of different graphics modes. I've been playing at the 120 FPS mode, but there's a 30 FPS cinematic RTX mode. It is gorgeous. It's one of the best looking games you're on that mode. But I can't play games at 30 FPS. It feels like I'm playing in slow motion. So I went to 120, which is fine. The game still looks great. You just don't get any RTX, and a lot of the textures are scaled back.
So my 4080 Core i9 13th gen with 32 gigs of DDR5 should be okay.
You might be okay. My Xbox Series X.
Although my monitor I'm currently on is like a 60 hertz monitor, so
Oh, that's lame. What are you doing?
I know. Well, because it's a 34-inch 4K mini LED that costs $5,000. Apparently.
$5,000 and it
fair.
can't even do 120. Get out of here.
Yeah, it's apparently not a gaming monitor. I know. So, but I'll see if I can. But see, I don't want to buy it because it's gonna be like 60 quid, as you would say, right?
65 quid. Yep, that's how much
Oh,
it cost me.
it
Yeah.
hurts. I might have to go to CD Keys to see if I can get it a little bit cheaper. But I don't know. I don't know if I can pay that much.
Well, Steam does refunds. If you play for less than 2 hours, you can technically get a refund on Steam. So you can do that.
All right. Well, that's a lot of pressure. But I'll see about maybe giving that a shot at least. Oh, that's definitely that's a lot of hamburgers and beer for Dan on a Friday, but we'll see.
Sure.
We'll revisit this topic next week as well as being AI. Being AI. I do have to drop off, unfortunately.
Yes.
Zach, are you going to stick around for a Q&A with the audience?
For a few minutes, yep, I'll do that.
Okay, so if you guys have questions, you can start to ask those in chat, and Zach will take it from there. As always, follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, Rubino. I just hit exactly 80,000 followers, which maybe don't follow me. So, but then again, I know that sounds big. I guarantee you out of that 80,000, 65,000 are probably inactive accounts because the interactions of those is not very high. And that's probably what Elon Musk was complaining about this week. We should revisit that story next week because that was freaking hilarious. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. He'll answer your questions there, as well as always. Tune into us on Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Take care, everyone.
Nice.
And nothing crashed.
That's great. Great news. Good luck on your meeting.
Yeah. Shouldn't have to say that, but
Yes. Nice short episode for episode 300.
Yep. I'll send you that file, and I'm going to drop off now.
Can you
everyone,
also get me when you get a free moment, can you do the ad read record so I can get that inserted as well?
Oh, you want me to read them?
I mean, I don't have the ad read or the ad copy.
Damn, I can't send you things. All right. I think there may be two, so maybe we'll split it. Well, I'll let
All
you
right,
know.
fine.
I'll
Send me
follow
whichever
up
one
on
you
it.
want me to do, and I'll do it, and then you can do the other one.
Okay, fair enough.
All right.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye. All right. If you are here for questions, now is the time. My camera has stopped working. I can't fix it because Skype has decided to end itself. So if you have questions, you can't see me answer them, but I am here to answer them. We'll hang around for a few minutes. There is no much good mini LED monitors with 120 plus refresh rate aimed at for productivity aside from the curve Samsung ones. Hopefully this year OLED productivity monitors will be a thing. Yeah, I'm hoping. I really also want to see monitors enter the 5K market. I know Samsung's about to bring one out. I know Apple's got one already, but 5K is the sweet spot, I think, for 27, 32 inch. Any Surface Go 4 or Loop Workspace news? Sadly, not. Surface Go 4, I think, is supposed to be coming in the spring, though, so it's nearby. Any thoughts on File Explorer moving to WinApp SDK? Not too surprising. We know they're working on a big File Explorer overhaul currently, and it would make sense that they decided to base that work on WinApp SDK because that is their future development platform. UWP / it's not using UWP anyway. WinUI 2.x currently isn't. WinUI 3.x is the way forward, and I believe that is required for WinApp SDK. I'm not too sure. But yes. Will the OCR snap require NPU? I do not know what will or won't require NPUs. I would guess no, because it's not too taxing. But who knows? I genuinely don't know, so I can't tell you. Is the Surface Duo worth picking up for £300? Is that the Duo 1 or Duo 2? If you have 300 quid lying around and you don't need it for savings or anything, yeah, the Duo 2 especially is a great deal at 300. The Duo 1, yes, but I don't know if you're going to enjoy using it as a primary phone because it doesn't have a good camera or NFC. So unless you're willing to pick it up as, knowingly as a sort of secondary sort of side device, then sure, 300 quid is fine. But yeah, it's not a great primary phone, the Duo 1. At least not anymore. You can certainly, if you don't care about the camera and if you don't care about paying for things using your phone and you don't care about high refresh rate screens, then yes, the Duo 1 is still a great phone. And it will get one more year. It's out of support in September, so it'll have a few more months. Well, it'll have up until September or for updates. I don't know if it'll get the next major version. It might, but if it does, that'll be the last major version. The Duo changelogs are live and have no new features. Why was the patch so large, and were you expecting new features? I wasn't expecting new features. I was expecting bug fixes, and I believe that's why the update's so large, is because it's a bunch of fixes. I don't know why they didn't mention that in the changelog. I think they're getting lazy. But yeah, it's a bug fix build. The reason why it was so large is because maybe some of the bug fixes some of the bugs they fixed were, excuse me, some of the bugs they fixed may have been part of system files that are on the larger side. So to actually update the file, you need to reissue it. And if it's a 50 megabyte file and there's 4 of them, that's already going to add up quite quickly. So, right, any more questions? If not, I will say farewell. Give you last call, last orders for questions. All right, I'm going to guess that is the end. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back next... Oh, funny enough, we will not be back next Friday. We will be recording next Thursday instead. So keep that in mind. We'll be Thursday at the usual time, but on Thursday instead of Friday. Keep that in mind. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and we shall see you next time. Bye-bye.